All right, guys, so we got to talk about Joe Rogan, who came out and made a very fascinating observation, an observation I've made plenty of times here, about our modern day politics and how far left the left has become, right? They've become the party of extremism, right? Again, especially the woke revolutionaries, right? And Joe Rogan was discussing this as the woke revolutionaries and the Democrat Party have attacked him in the past for his opinions on certain topics like the pandemic, children being indoctrinated in school with gender and sexual ideology. You know, again, topics that the left has become very, very, very extreme on, okay? Because he's not going along with the left and their authoritarianism, right? And I actually want to talk about this clip because Joe Rogan also came out and talked about guns as well, too. In the wake of what happened in Uvalde, Texas with that mass shooting. And the left, once again, is eating one of their own, right? And I think this clip is a good clip because it basically is Joe Rogan explaining that, hey, I am one of your own, right? I am very liberal. Why are you attacking me like this just because I disagree with you on a few points? So with that being said, before we get in this, I just want to let you guys know, if you like my channel, you want to support my channel, you can do so using the links in the description below. You can support the Patreon, you support the PayPal, you support the merch. There are multiple ways to support the channel if you would like to do so. So without further ado, let's go ahead and roll this clip of Joe Rogan discussing how the left eats their own, including him. Take a look.
Who would have thought that if you look back on the early days, what we used to think of as conservative versus liberal. Liberal was pro-free speech. People were open-minded, non-violent, and people were open to other people's ideas. And the right was like suppressive, the nanny state, condemn certain language, condemn certain behaviors. That's not the case today.
Yeah.
Today, the left has gone so fucking far left, so radical, that the right are the ones that are celebrating comedians and celebrating Chappelle. And they had my back through all the crazy shit that happened with me. It was Fox News that fucking had my back.
Would you ever think that they would be the ones to cape for you, like, 10 years ago?
I'm so liberal.
Yeah.
Like, I talk about it all the time. Like, I say I am not a conservative. I'm not conservative. But I am pro-Second Amendment, and I am a hunter, and I am a cage fighting commentator, and I drink and I smoke cigars, and I like to bow hunt.
Yeah.
So there's a lot in there that's like, hey,
crossover.
Yeah, but it's just being a human. But I'm a compassionate person.
Yeah, so Joe Rogan has been saying things that I've been saying for a long time on this channel about how extreme the Democrat Party / the left has become, where it's like, if you don't agree with them 100%, you're just not a Democrat, right? Or you're not, a liberal or progressive or whatever, okay? Even Joe Rogan just admitted, I'm so liberal. This is the guy that was a Bernie Sanders supporter during the Democrat primary, okay? He supported Bernie Sanders, a socialist. But if you listen to somebody like Cenk Uygur of TYT, who also is a socialist, right? And he supported Bernie Sanders as well. Joe Rogan is right-wing. He's a right-wing conservative. Okay, just like he labels Bill Maher a right-wing conservative, when these guys are clearly not right-wingers. Okay, they're clearly not conservative, at least not by what the traditional definition would be. Okay, they're liberals. They're liberals. They're classical liberals, but they're still liberals. But see, if you are a classical liberal, like what Joe Rogan is and Bill Maher is, that now is conservative, right? They pushed all the classical liberals out of the left and said, no, you guys are on the right, because the left has gone full-blown authoritarianism, right? Classical liberalism can generally be described as being more socially liberal and fiscally conservative, okay? In contrast to American conservatism, which focuses more on basically using the government to uphold traditional values while preserving economic and free market freedoms and principles, right? And that is why Joe Rogan is in fact not a conservative, okay? I'm pretty sure a lot of his social values probably don't align with conservative social values. However, the left can't tell the difference because Joe Rogan is not an extremist on, for example, indoctrinating children in school and sexual and gender ideology. So therefore, that makes him conservative according to the left, okay? When there's clearly a middle ground between, a conservative's view on certain topics like sexuality, gay marriage, or whatever, and the far left's view on it, which is that, hey, it should just be pushed on everybody, including children, right? I think Joe Rogan is there in that middle ground, okay? But with that being said, the left is once again upset at Joe Rogan because of his take on guns and defending the Second Amendment following the Uvalde mass shooting. Okay, so with that being said, let's go ahead and roll the clips of Joe Rogan discussing his opinion on guns and how he believes in our fundamental rights to keep and bear arms. Take a look.
And it happens in this country like every now and then. It's like, how do you stop that? No one knows how to stop that. What is the answer? Is the answer take everyone's guns? Well, they're not going to give their guns up. So you're going to have only criminals are going to have guns. It's like, it's not going to be a good situation. I wrote this thing once that said this country has a mental health problem disguised as a gun problem. And that's what it is. And I don't think it's wise to take the guns away from the people and leave all the power to the government. We see how they are even with an armed populace. They still have a tendency towards totalitarianism, and there's a natural inclination when you are a person in power to try to hold more power and acquire more power. And there's never an inclination to give more power back to the people, to give more freedoms back to the people. Freedoms lost are rarely regained,
especially when it comes to guns. Okay, once you give up your right to keep and bear arms, the government's never giving that back. Why? Because the government now knows that they have a monopoly on violence, right? And if they want to, for example, require you to take an experimental vaccine, they can do that now at gunpoint with no pushback whatsoever, right? No pushback, okay? There's no threat of violence from the American people in response to government overreach, which means that they're just going to continue to overreach because they know that, okay, well, these people can't really fight back. Okay, again, this is why we have the Second Amendment, to protect from that, right? And it is ingrained in our culture, and that's not going to change. There are people in this country that will never, ever, ever give up their guns, right? Good guys and bad guys. Of course, the bad guys aren't giving up their guns, right? The criminals aren't, but there also are good guys too who are just like, I'm never giving up my gun, right? You will have to kill me before I give up my guns, and I will never sell them for no price whatsoever. Okay, it is what it is. So I don't think that gun confiscation and some of the things that the left is advocating for here is actually going to work. I think it's too ingrained in our traditional culture. But, hey, with that being said, we do have a culture problem, okay? Because we have a culture of violence that is going on in our inner cities that, in my opinion, is contributing a whole lot to the so-called gun violence, okay? And people also got to keep in mind when it comes to so-called gun violence, a lot of the gun violence is from suicide, right? So if you take suicides out, which is over half of the so-called gun violence, then the gun problem doesn't look all that bad, okay? A lot of this stuff is skewed by suicides, right, which are committed with guns, okay? So with that being said, that doesn't stop the left from still attacking Joe Rogan for defending the Second Amendment. Rogan's episode received mixed reactions from fans and commentators, with some calling him, quote, an absolute moron for making illogical arguments in his podcast that has often come under fire for spreading misinformation on a number of issues. Philly Mag journalist Ernest Owens wrote, Joe Rogan makes millions of dollars going the wrong direction on Common Sense Daily. Quote, imagine purposely choosing to make illogical arguments that will continue to endanger the lives of innocent children, from COVID to gun control. It's a disgusting way to make a living. Podcaster John Melendez said, quote, as I've said before, Joe Rogan is an absolute moron. Saying something like gun control doesn't work is equally as stupid as him saying you should take blank instead of getting vaccinated. Why anybody listens to this blockhead is beyond me. Yeah, so this is the left, again, attacking Joe Rogan, one and own, right? A self-admitted liberal, for simply defending liberal values, right? He's defending liberal values, okay? Having access to guns, defending the Second Amendment and our constitutional rights is not just a conservative thing. Okay, that is actually a liberal thing as well too, but these guys aren't liberals anymore. They are authoritarians, right? Because they see a couple countries like Australia and Japan that have, basically banned guns. Okay, they say, well, there's less gun violence there. Okay, doesn't mean there's less violence, it's just less gun violence. Okay, that's fine. Yes, if you have less guns, obviously you're going to have less gun violence, okay? But you got to look at countries like, Switzerland that have a high rate of gun ownership, and their gun violence is very low, right? Their murder rate is virtually zero. Well, the reason why is because it's a different culture, right? And this is what I try to tell you guys. It's not the guns that's the problem. It is the culture of the society that has the guns, okay? So again, with our society, we didn't used to have mass shootings like this. We didn't used to have this type of gun violence. As our culture started to change, as we started to become more progressive, okay, that is what, in my opinion, has led to a lot of the violence that we're seeing today in our society, okay? So again, it's not the guns that's the problem. It's not the guns. It's the people. It's the people. But see, the left, they want to live in a society where people who are law-abiding citizens get punished for what criminals do. And in certain situations where criminals are going to have access to the guns anyways, which is what Joe Rogan's saying, they don't want law-abiding citizens to be able to defend themselves, right? Like, for example, that story about that lady that shot dead the mass shooter out in West Virginia, right? The woman was carrying a pistol. The guy had an AR-15, and he was trying to shoot at people in a party from across the street. The woman took out her gun and just shot the guy dead. Saved lives, right? Saved probably tens of lives, okay? In the leftist world, only the criminal would have that gun, and he would just better commit that mass shooting with no pushback whatsoever from law-abiding citizens. That is what the world that the leftists want to live in. Another viewer wrote, quote, "Oh man, it's crazy and shocking that Joe Rogan's take on gun control is lazy, generic, uninformed, and also probably wrong. The Uvalde attack has become the deadliest attack on an elementary school since the 2012 mass shooting at Sandy Hook that claimed the lives of 20 students and 6 teachers. Authorities have not revealed Ramos's motivation for the shooting, but said the suspect was acting alone. Quote, Texans across the state are grieving for the victims of this senseless crime and for the community of Uvalde, Governor Abbott said in a statement last week." Yeah, so it become clear that these people on the left are no longer liberals, right? They're not classical liberals like Joe Rogan or Bill Maher. They're full-blown authoritarian, right? They want the government to have a monopoly on everything, including guns, free speech, healthcare, right? Everything. They just want full, total control of your life, sponsored by the government, who has shown that they are corrupt, okay? Corrupt, and they're not necessarily thinking in the best interest of the American people, okay? And the last thing you want to do when faced with a tyrannical, corrupt government is to give up your means of defending yourself against that tyrannical and corrupt government. But according to the left, that makes you a right-winger to think that way, right? If you simply, again, are distrustful of the government, which is what liberals used to be, right? Until they became, again, authoritarian leftists who love the government. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.